Thank you, Kevin. As if he didn't have his hands full with EVs, battery technology, minerals, product plans, sales, how about marketing? Steve Carlisle is a lot of things for General Motors, but recently he even weighed in as the interim CMO for all GM brands, and his focus is to reshape its approach going forward. Well, the marketing must be working. GM's U.S. sales rose sharply again for the third straight quarter. As you saw yesterday, its first quarter sales rose 18% to nearly 600,000 units, volume up 16% at Chevrolet, 7.6% at GMC, 99% at Buick, and 29% at Cadillac. That's called a four-run homer, I believe. Overall, U.S. retail sales rose 15%, and GM is on its way to doing many things, including transform its very nature, starting with EVs and continuing with a whole new product lineup. To talk with me about all things General Motors, please welcome Steve Carlisle. Welcome to the stage, Steve.
Great to be here.
Congratulations on the Hummer ad.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
So let's start off with what we heard yesterday in sales. You obviously have to be extremely happy. It must be the marketing, right?
let's agree on that just for today. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Why not? No, tell me about the state of the market right now for GM, where you're seeing some real momentum and really what you're looking forward to in Q2.
Yeah, I thought several of the comments on the last panel were exactly on point, right? When we look at it, we see an industry that's kind of in the low to mid 15s, and it looks like it'll be that way, maybe on a slightly increasing trajectory. ATPs are good. Incentives are, let's say, moderate. Used car prices are stable. Dealer grosses are stable. And so long may it continue.
Yeah, indeed. You have a certain viewpoint on, since you brought it up, on ATPs.
Yeah.
Look at average transaction prices are, some have said, even just recently as last week, that it'll crest over $50,000 on new cars. What's your view on it?
Well, I think it's maybe a little bit more nuanced than that, right? Mm-hmm. I think that those numbers are consistent with the current industry mix, but that mix will change as time goes on. And I'll cite a couple of examples of that. We're just in the throes of launching the new Chevrolet Trax and expanding the Trailblazer lineup.
Yep.
You know, every price point on that Trax will be under $30,000, right? So, and profitable at that. So, I think the uptake on that will be pretty significant because there are, as we said, affordability constraints out there, or concerns out there in the market. And so, you know, how nature abhors a vacuum and seeks to fill it. I think different OEMs will find different ways to go at that opportunity and not leave it unattended, right? So we'll have to see how all that sorts out, because I think the pricing on the existing portfolio will, there's an argument that it'll stay kind of where it is, but it'll be a question of how does the portfolio expand again and get it at some of these price points. And then the point made on used cars, I think, is very valid as well, as a renewed look at and a professionalization of used cars as an avenue for a lot of consumers into car ownership, which is why we made the move that we did with Car Bravo in anticipation of that.
Some have said, particularly some dealers who I've talked to in certain parts of the country, that there is an affordability crisis to some extent. That, and I know you just cited two examples of a way to alleviate that. But the traditional sedan market has changed significantly. The traditional entry-level vehicle market has changed significantly. Affordability crisis.
Yeah. So I think we need to look into that as well. Like when we look at what's the difference between a 15 or 15.5 unit industry and a 17.5 unit industry, where did those people go? I think if you look at it in terms of credit tiers, you'll find that it's maybe the more credit challenged consumer that's feeling that. And you know, the rest of the car buying public is basically, you know, still there. And on, I wouldn't say necessarily a normal cycle, but a normal trade cycle, but still very much in the market. And I think that's why we see kind of quarter after quarter a market that's somewhere in the 15s, right, and not expanding up again, because the conditions that result in that things like interest rates and the like of that. Those are, going in that direction at the moment. So we'll have to see what pans out there. And as I said, other alternatives will come into the market. And again, I would cite products like the Trax or Encore GX, where, at least from our perspective, we'll start to get at those price points in the 20s again to start to work away at. We've been absent from there in large part for a little while.
Where does the second half of the year go from a macroeconomic standpoint as you sit and ponder the U.S. market?
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself what would change to change what's going on now. And, I went down the checklist of the different things before, as did the prior panel. And, absent another shock, it looks like more of that, through the end of the year. And I think there's an argument also for improvement as we go, because this overhang of interest rates and discussion about recession and things like that we'll work our way through that as time goes on. So we would see, an improving sort of a situation as we get, and it's also, I should add, a terrific year for product launches. I know we have a great number of launches, whether it's internal combustion or electric vehicles as we go through the course of the year, but that's true of the entire industry. There's just an unprecedented number of EV launches this year, which will bring people into showrooms, I believe.
You're launching a stable of electric vehicles, just to name a few, just from Chevy, Silverado, Blazer, Equinox, from Cadillac, the Lyriq, obviously, Buick, the Electra. GM's transforming its lineup, which is what has been talked about for the last couple of years, but I think a lot of talk has now come to launch mode and fruition, right?
Finally.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's the coiled spring that's just being released, right? And we feel that we've characterized it as a breakthrough year, and what we mean by that is that we start to show the numbers on the EV side in particular. We're performing well on the internal combustion side, as you said in the intro. So this is year of the EVs, and which is why we're so pleased to break through that 20,000 unit mark on EVs in the first quarter. We see growing that to 50,000 by the end of the second quarter and 100,000 by the end of the year. So just to kind of scale the situation as we see it, as we start to launch, but importantly ramp up in scale. We've put into production our Ultium plant in Lordstown. The one in Spring Hill, Tennessee is close behind it, and the one in Michigan is close behind that. So all the factors are starting to come into place here.
Do we finally get to a stage where the top hat that's been talked about for so long, and I remember going back even 20 years ago, where Bob Lutz used to talk about just transforming, taking that platform that could easily just be interchanged. Is that what we're going to?
Well, sure, and that's why we took the step with the Ultium platform.
Right.
To get that, if you go way back when we used to talk about fuel cells, and still do, by the way, but that skateboard idea.
Skateboards, yeah.
And we are starting to see that play out for sure. All these Ultium products with the flat floor, the packaging is tremendous. The ability to put top hats that are differentiated on top on a cost-effective basis. That's exactly what we're starting to see.
There are dealers in the room here who will wonder what that means to their showroom. It's not. I mean, to me, it's an outright transformation. You'll be able to do so many things with your products you have now that you couldn't currently do, right?
Right. That's absolutely correct, and faster, I might add. Right, because in the old days, if the old days being 3 years ago, if we wanted to do a highly differentiated product from one to the next, then we're into architecture, and that takes a long time from a development and testing point of view. Versus there's a lot more carry forward once we get the basic platform in place, which is what makes Lyriq so significant as the first one on the, let's say, the lower roof design. So then that makes Blazer faster, Equinox faster. It makes Silverado important because then that makes Sierra faster and the SUVs that follow those faster. So
lots of conversation, Steve, about capability of trucks and traditional truck buyers. I mean, this is at the heart of your company and the heart of many others too. What's the feedback that you're receiving on truck EVs from your traditional buyers?
I'd say terrific, right? Well, and we started with Hummer because we wanted kind of that no excuses. This vehicle can do anything a truck can do and then some, right? To start to take away that concern, because certainly you would hear that. But using some data, if you will, the Silverado EV When we do research like all OEMs do, and we research pickup trucks. It's typically in California and typically in Texas. And in the Texas one, which you might expect to be the most skeptical, more than half of the respondents in those clinics are saying they're willing to consider a pickup as their next a Silverado EV or an electric pickup as their next pickup purchase. And well, why is that? It does everything. It has the towing, it has the payload, it has the performance, and in the case of the Silverado EV, it has tremendous cargo capability with the midgate and the fold-down seats and the frunk and all of those things. So if we stay focused on, we don't want the consumer to have to make any trade-offs, and to do things even better, which I believe EVs in the end, why do I want one? Because they're better, then that's the formula. And I'd say we get that from the retail customer through the clinic research, but we've done a lot of work on a one-to-one basis with our fleet and commercial customers, and again, there the uptake and the interest has been tremendous. The difference being there, they see the cost of ownership advantage from a fleet and commercial perspective. So very optimistic, excited about the Silverado coming online even this month.
Are you worried at all, and I hear this too from dealers, about the infrastructure requirements? I mean, how do we get from A to C?
Well, I don't know if I'd say worried, but I would acknowledge that we have a lot of work to do. And we ourselves are putting our shoulder behind the wheel. From a consumer point of view, every program has a program to get you into a charger in your home because that's where most people want to charge. Next is community charging, and in that case, we're working with our dealers to provide a good number of chargers for then the dealer to work within the local community to site those. And then on road trip charging. So we form partnerships with the pilot company, Pilot Flying J. So we'll have 2,000 locations, or 500 locations across the country on interstates with over 2,000 chargers. So just as an example of, and then in your mobile app and in your infotainment system, you'll be able to access 110,000 charge points across the country. So a lot of work being done there, needs to be done, but I'm optimistic on that as well. It's one of those where, you know, once the opportunity is there, I think it's one of those where we really had to prime the pump. Well, show me the vehicles, show me the demand, and you'll start to see the chargers. And I think, in fact, we're starting to see that.
You've had an exciting launch in the gasoline era, if I could use that term, with the Z06 that's now out with the Corvette. How much excitement around the electric Corvette?
Which electric Corvette is that you're talking about, Jason? You know, if I heard about it, I'd be excited.
Well, Ferrari's going electric, so why not?
Well, we are excited about the electrified Corvette that we're just in the process of launching. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Great try, but stay tuned.
Is there a particular GM EV out there that has you most excited? I mean,
pick my favorite child, right?
Right.
I don't have one. I do, but I would never tell them, right?
Right.
No, there's a lot to love out there right now, for a lot of reasons. I think Lyric is pretty phenomenal. I have a long history with that, as you might know. Celestiq, I think, is going to be absolutely stunning. Yeah. And then I'm just going to start going down the list, but I'll stop there for now. Let's
talk about minerals and about energy, and a lot of talk here just in the last year or so about the evolution to EVs really opening up a door to expand the business in a lot of different ways. Tell me about GM Energy.
Oh, GM Energy is really twofold. There's a charging leg of it, if you will. So all the conversation that we just had about building out charging infrastructure, providing home charging and all that, that's a big activity that's in there. But the GM Energy part of it refers to the fact that once we put these big batteries in these vehicles, then you have also a storage device. And if we combine that with bidirectional charging, meaning that you can charge your car or you can discharge your car back into your house or into the grid, that's an enormous opportunity. If you think of California or Texas or whatever, which unfortunately have experienced outages in power, if you think about the fact that you could use your Silverado EV to power your house for 21 days, right? That's a lot.
Sure.
And so then you kind of shift the conversation from EVs being part of the problem, which they are sometimes characterized to be, to being a big part of the potential solution. And then we can take that, the same technology, and provide home energy storage, right? Instead of having your Generac generator, you could have a battery unit, for when your car's not there, or if you have solar panels, which a lot of people are. The propensity, EV buyers, I don't know if you knew this, but half of EV buyers are considering buying solar panels a year within purchase of the EV. So you just think of the potential for growth of solar panels. Those solar panels are going to need to have a place to put their energy. So that's what that's all about, and I think it's a huge potential TAM and a big opportunity for us, and it's all very compatible from a technological point of view.
And related to the first part of my question, tell me about the investments that you've done related to battery-related materials.
Yeah, so we're all familiar with the discussion around IRA and the need to friend-shore, home-shore, all of that materials. So we've formed, I think we're up to 7 now, different JVs and relationships to secure supply of, and we want to do that for security reasons. And if you didn't learn that lesson before semiconductors, you certainly should have learned it during semiconductors, in safe and friendly locations, and securing access to the supply. So we have agreements on lithium and on nickel and on cathode active material, on pre-processing and post-processing and all of that. And so as we look at IRA, including the announcements or the communications last Friday, we feel like we're well positioned from a consumer point of view in terms of consumers being able to access that full $7,500. So we're starting to see how that start to pay off as well.
A lot of talk today about inventory, where inventory is going to go.
Yeah.
Where are you on inventory the rest of the year? Where are dealers sitting in the room here? I know some say, I don't have enough of this, but I've got more than enough of that.
Yeah. So there's certainly, I'd say at an aggregate basis, we still have a bit of headroom to grow. So grounded at dealers, I think we're at about 30 days. We could probably be more like at 50. So there's that amount of headroom. And then, as you said, as you look and then we look at aggregate, what's at the ground on the dealer and what's in transit, that needs to be more in that 50 to 60 range. And then it's not distributed equally across all product lines, to your point. So that all needs to be solved. I say the other thing that we think a lot about is normally we'd like to see about 2/3 of our total inventory grounded at the dealer and 1/3 in transit, and right now it's still reversed, right? Because of backlog from recovery of whatever and general shortage of logistics, whether it's trains or trucks. So, but so I'd say in total we feel like we're at about the right level of inventory. We don't have proportionally enough at dealers right now, and we need to solve this logistics situation. But we think we're on a good glide path looking into the year and where we'll probably exit.
One automaker executive told me a couple of years ago, there are things that could not have changed or would have taken a decade to change within the industry that COVID changed within the course of 24 to 36 months.
Yeah.
You concur?
100%. I think what's the expression one of our dealers uses is you develop good habits in bad times, right? So all of us learning to operate at much lower levels of inventory, faster turns, taking cost out everywhere, carrying costs of inventory is a terrific example. So however we got there, I think the situation with COVID and then into semiconductors, it provided the whole industry to do a reset. I think, if we're honest, we would all say we were carrying too much inventory and producing too much, relatively speaking. But you get into a situation of who goes first kind of thing. And then because the discipline around pricing that was talked about before in the last panel, that also factors into it. So we all found ourselves in a situation where the circumstances were there to make that big adjustment where we could be in a fundamentally leaner, better, more cost-effective, more responsive to the customer situation. And so our challenge now is to carry that forward. And the reason we want to is it's I think better for everybody. It's better for the OEM. It's certainly better for dealers. Witness what's happened with profitability over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think better for the consumer too, because you've got fresher, better faster turning products, notwithstanding, availability issues that we struggle with from time to time.
It's inevitable that at an event like this, we're going to talk about, at least have one question on facilities. How do facilities change in the GM world over the course of the next few years as your product lineup changes?
Dealers, you mean?
Yeah, dealer facilities.
Yeah. Well, we have programs through most of our, and it's like a lot of the others with the electric vehicle, to anticipate what those unique requirements are, and then in some or several cases, image programs and the like of that. So I think that very much factors into the whole equation. We want, what do we need to do to be successful? I'd say reduce our mutual costs and improve the customer experience wherever that occurs, right? So, the data, we talk about it in terms of an omni-channel experience. And what we mean by that is the consumer wants to be able to choose between, I want to do as much online or as little online, and I want to be able to go to the dealer if I want to. About 77% of people want to do both. They want to do a hybrid, right? And then some want online and some want nothing to do with online. They only want to be at the dealer. So, whatever that environment is, we need the best possible customer experience. So our commitment is, work with our dealers and make the case for change in the future, and I think we'll do a lot better. Where we do image programs, we know it pays, right, in terms of the return. Yeah. We
got a minute left. You're 96 hours into your CMO role. What are you going to change?
Well, I think marketing is another part of our business that the situation that we're headed into begs for re-examination, right? So, and again, COVID was an accelerant to this. And what I mean by that is, if you think about broadcast media and how we reach consumers, and then now the fragmentation of linear broadcast and the emergence of streamers, it's become a very fragmented marketplace, right? So I think what that says is what we used to do, what we've done for years and years, it's gotten a lot more expensive, and it's become more difficult to find effective properties to get our messaging out. At the same time as some pretty tremendous digital tools have emerged. So that's really a good part of it, is to go back and look through all of that and everything that has worked for many, many years. What's the case and the need to change a lot of those things? So we're going through that. That extends to sponsorships and all of that. So it's kind of a total rethink. We call it reimagine marketing, and we're starting to get really excited about it. Like, we're really proud of what we did with LeBron and so on. And the ad that you just saw, you look inside of that, and well, what part of that was more effective? The digital online part or the TV part, and what's the customer acquisition cost in either case? That's the kind of thing that we're going through.
And auto shows?
Auto shows, that's another one where we really have to think about which ones and then how. Yeah. How do we go there? And we have to keep a strong focus on, again, we're acquiring consumers, right? We're getting eyeballs. So what's the best way to do that? So an example of that, the tension is that used to be the place that you did launches and reveals, and it's exciting, right? The challenge with it is that you struggle for eyeballs and share of mind when you're in that auto show environment, versus we got quite accustomed to doing digital, remote, online reveals. And when we look at the numbers on events like that, it's pretty compelling, right? At the same time, we recognize that auto shows are very important on a regional, local basis. So we got to figure out how to balance all that out. So, and it could be just, we won't do as many launches and reveals as auto shows, because that drives a lot of expense, and it's not very effective. But will we be present? We'll absolutely be present, and work with our dealer associations in that regard.
Well, thanks for coming to New York.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Steve Carlisle, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.